called The Last of Us, and it's a series for HBO based on the game. So
Wow.
yeah, so we have the world exists in the game, but actualizing animated characters into human beings in front of a
Wow.
camera is a big
Wow.
process, and trying to stay true to the game and the story, which is an amazing game. If anybody's out there in a game or listening, of course you know what I'm talking about. But
Yeah.
it's an amazing award-winning game, and it's I think the reason that this is going to translate so well, because game to series or movie is not always a huge success. There's too
Right.
much invested in the game. There's too many,
Yeah.
people are live the games. So it's I think this is going to be wonderful. This show was pitched to me as a love story, and I was like, what?
Wow.
It's
Wow.
post-apocalyptic. It's a love story to humanity. So
Wow.
that's the way the producers have um, um, approached making this project. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's
We made it. We
you
made
made
it.
it. You made it indeed. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know you had this incredible. Well, first of all, two things you're grateful for. What are two things you're grateful for?
Oh, I am eternally grateful for my children, and
Yeah.
because that was a big wish for me in my life, and I am just grateful that I'm I don't know. I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be, I guess. And I am meeting new people like yourself, and life is feeling rich, and it's ups and downs. So I'm grateful for that. I'm just grateful for where I am at in my life.
Beautiful.
I feel like I'm in the right spot, finally.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Can I
Yeah.
ask what's top of mind right now for you? What's the one thing top of mind?
Right now is right now, like this moment,
Uh-huh.
getting home. I've been away from home for 14 months, and I just want to get home. I feel
Yeah.
like I need to touch. I need to touch ground at home. I just need to,
Yes.
yeah, I need to
Yeah.
get present in my home. And I feel like there's going to be a big change. I'm not
Yeah.
exactly sure what it is, but I just need to get home first.
I hear you. I hear you. So it's so powerful how when we feel what we know intuitively, and you have such a powerful intuition. And then just surrendering to what that is,
Yeah,
despite outcome could be, it's amazing.
that's the
So
part. That's the learning part that's tricky, is just to um, listen to it,
yeah,
not dismiss
absolutely.
it, your intuition. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, here we are with Cynthia Summers, a costume designer, wardrobe. Would that be correct? Costume designer, wardrobe stylist.
Costume
Uh,
designer. Yes.
Costume, beautiful, amazing. I know that sometimes these titles are depending on.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Totally.
Yeah,
I don't want to like misrepresent, because, you know,
yeah,
there's people out there that do stylist jobs that are different than what I do. And it's
yeah,
really hard. It's a really
yeah,
hard work. And,
yeah.
credit where credit is due, I think is,
That's right.
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we start off with explaining to the audiences what that difference is between what you do and what other people may do that sometimes causes confusion.
Oh, yeah. I mean, titles are hard, and if you work globally, titles for the same job can be different as well, which is something I learned because a while ago, 10 years or more ago, I was involved with some Italians, and they just kept calling me a costumer. And I'm like, no, I'm a costume designer. I worked hard to get here, but
Right.
it's translation and how people, but so the difference between a costume designer and a stylist. So a costume designer is someone who is given a story, and through many meetings and many sort of ideas and other people's visions, creating a look for a character. So that's not the person, that's the character, the person the actor's portraying. A stylist dresses people. So if it was the actor who was portraying a character now is doing red carpet or doing an event, they're doing it as themselves. So that's a tough job because, you know, we see an actor and we think of them in their roles.
Right.
We acknowledge them for their roles, and maybe even, you know, that's how we see them exactly. And they're not that. They are a person at the core that is different than their characters. So the stylist has to dress that person, and they have to feel comfortable in the public eye, and a lot of times beautiful, whatever that means to them. And so that's tricky because you're dressing a human being as opposed to a character. And kudos to them. And I, you know, at times some costume designers do that because we create these relationships with actors when we're working with them. So, you know, they're comfortable with you and they would like you to do that for them, but it's a whole other set of contacts and, you know, where you can get items for them to wear and what it's going to look like. And if you're not in that circuit, it's tough. And I tried for a while when I was on the L Word, because we had so many women doing so many, you know, so much press and so many things. And I did it for a while. It was really hard for me. It was really hard. And that's when I learned that that's not my job. And if I wanted it to be my job, I was going to have to, you know, maybe choose that over designing. So that's the difference.
Yeah, beautiful. Well said.
Characters versus real people.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
That clears up so much, because sometimes people who are just so immensely creative, who are trying to find a path, aren't sure how their talent should best show up for themselves and their gifts and where their strengths really lie. And because everything is so interwoven, it can be challenging and difficult to say, you know, this is really where I shine. Though I can do these other things, this is really where I shine. And then surrendering to that.
Yeah, exactly. And not saying you shouldn't try it. And maybe you can do both. You know, for a while I thought I could do both. And for a while I did. And it was just too exhausting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. There's so much in the power of surrendering to what we know is true to us. Can you take me through a story of which you had to surrender into what you know is true and best for you, and no longer struggle or resist with, you know, what you knew was in your heart?
Oh boy. When? What part of my life? I think that's an ongoing, you know, as you grow as a human being, it's never, you're always rejigging and always, you know, shuffling and or you should be, because I think who wants to get stuck in a, I don't know, 30-year-old version of yourself when that's not appropriate anymore to your life and what you're doing. So, oh my gosh, I mean, I could go way back or I could go like yesterday.
I hear you. Whatever top of mind, please.
I mean, I guess maybe the biggest event, sort of the biggest struggle I had or thing or time of my life that I had to sort of make decisions and overcome obstacles and find a path was, I mean, when I was really young. And I think that's true for everyone. But I became, by default, in a way, although I know, you know, that's not how it happens. I became a mother. I became a teenage mother. And that was something that I never thought would happen for me. Medically, I had some issues. And when I was a teenager and I don't know how to say this. Let me see. I had some medical issues. It was like an emergency situation. I didn't really understand what was happening to me because I was too young, and that wasn't my focus. My health wasn't really my focus because I was living as a teenager does, kind of spherically and like everything out into the world and trying to find my place. And so left what was happening to me too late. It became an emergency situation, and I was the outcome was that my parents were actually told that the possibility of me ever having children was 1%. Like it would be a miracle in a sense, because everything was moved around and things were taken out and the possibility was slim to none. And so I'm adopted. And I think inherently I knew that I always wanted to have my own tribe, my own family, my own, which as I grew older, realized that your family is who you make your family. It doesn't have to be your blood family. But
Yeah.
as I understood it as a teenager, I felt like maybe that was the missing part for me. You know, we all struggle with missing parts. And I never sought out my biological family. I did find out a bit about my mother when I was struggling as a teenager, and I did have that urge at times, but I never really, I just was living. So my life I didn't have room in my life for that. My biological family, that sounds really not very nice, but I really didn't. And maybe that was the practical me making that choice so young. So, so I got pregnant 2 years later after that and became a teenage mother and got married to that man. And we were both young and, you know, we didn't know who we were. So 1 year later, I became a single parent and very quickly realized that I had to take care of another human being that I was infinitely grateful for, because I never thought I was going to have this opportunity to build my own family, I guess.
Mhm.
And so it was a struggle, but a gift. And that's how I started my life. Really,
Mm.
that's how I started my life. And
Wow.
Eternally grateful. The struggle is real. um, Wanted to go home after my first husband and I split up, and my parents said no. And that also set me on another path, because I think that struck a chord with the competitive me. And I was like, really? Well, then just watch me. So I knew
Yeah.
then I knew then that I needed to support my son. I wanted a career. I didn't know what that was. I was starting off as, I thought I was going to be a visual artist because that's what I did. I also was early on a gymnast and a dancer. So that worked out for me. The art side didn't. I thought I'd go back to college and do something, or university and do something, that meant something to the world where I could get a real job. And that didn't work out for me. And that was another like, oh, really? So I'll choose this path because this is the path given to me. And so I started out, that was my first biggest life
Yeah.
hurdle, I guess. But once I got into it, you have to survive. And your survival could be I was on welfare for a while, my life was really, that was actually later, but my life was really, I was making choices, and I had to make choices. I had to make choices that allowed me to do what I felt like I needed to do to survive, and become a grown-up, and to nurture my child, etc., and deal with an ex and all of the stuff that comes with that. So that was the beginning for me. That was my first big life hurdle.
Yeah. And it sounds like, if I may, that what you found yourself surrendering to was a power within you, a tapping into this will.
Sure. And I wish someone had told me that at the time. Like, I wish I was open. I was open to everything, but I didn't know what to look for or what advice I needed. I mean, I guess that's a symptom of being young as well. When you're young, you don't listen or you don't hear the same, I guess. So that's really lovely. Thank you for saying that, because I truly wish I had heard that from someone when I was young, because I didn't hear that. I heard, you can't do that.
Wow.
So my motivation was, I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
As opposed to what you just said, which is lovely and encouraging that, I was on the right path. I didn't know it. And I want to say throughout most of my life, I was never really sure what the path I was on was the right path, but I kept
Yeah.
going. I kept with it. But
Yeah.
yeah, that would have been nice to hear when I was young.
Yeah. I hear you. I think when we're young and we're going through so much, it's so important to have empowerment in place
Yes.
instead of judgment, because
Yeah,
we're just
exactly.
so many people, whether it be parents or mentors or whomever, I think they project their fears onto us
Yes.
instead of giving us an opportunity to show up and be so freaking amazing in just who we are,
Mhm.
So we made it.
Yeah, we made it. Yes,
We
we made
made
it.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Well, Cynthia, your story always, it just gives me chills so
Aw,
much.
aw.
And I just wanted to say a little bit about, in terms of you overcoming, it sounded like you had several obstacles. One, you, first of all, which is a miracle in itself, were told that you wouldn't be able to have children. And I think that this was based on, from what I understand, if it's okay, something because of you going through the process of becoming a gymnast, right? Or being a gymnast or dancing and athleticism
Mhm.
and moving through the pain,
Right.
right?
Yes.
And moving through that pain, didn't realize that you had was it a cyst, I believe, or
Yeah,
a
yeah. I had to it's super common. Like women get it
right,
always and still do get ovarian cysts or tubal ligation to cyst in your fallopian tube. And that's what I had. And just being a very physical person my whole life,
Mhm.
and being, I was thinking about that this morning. I've actually always been, I'm really lucky because I've always been very comfortable in my own body and really okay with my body being out in the world.
Yeah,
That makes sense because,
yeah, yeah,
especially now, there's so many people that are not comfortable in their own bodies for
yeah,
various reasons. And I've
yes,
always felt I'm in the right place being in this body. And
yeah,
I think that really helped me in so many ways. And so, yes, I was very physical, always an athlete or a dancer, and heavily involved with gymnastics, and kind of heading towards the end of my career in gymnastics because it's like a young teens sort of sport, and then sort of that moving into dance after that. So I never, athletes live with pain, physical,
yeah, yeah,
emotional,
yeah,
but live with
yeah,
physical pain. And you especially back then, so we're talking the 70s,
mhm,
it was live through the pain, feel the burn, just live through the pain. And so I just didn't, I wasn't aware what was good pain and what was bad pain, really. I
right,
mean, if you broke your leg, but if it's something
right,
not as overt as that, so I left my situation, my condition, far too long, and I was not living at home at the time. So my friend's parents that I was living with, I don't, they didn't know me that well or that intimately physically. So I didn't have anyone sort of telling me that's not right.
right,
My,
right,
my coaches either, because again, a product of the time in sports where, no pain, no gain, all of that sort of thing. So
right.
yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
wow, wow. And so you were able to overcome that, and the fact that you were told that you wouldn't have any children with 1% chance, and then the miracle happened. You were able to have children. How many children do you have today? How many children do you have?
yeah, I have three.
3 children. Oh my
Right.
gosh.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
3 children.
I mean, I'd kept going, but
Yeah.
something that I wanted was children and a family in the
Mhm.
traditional sense of the word, because that's what I knew. And what I came to realize,
Right.
um, I'm not a traditional type person. So, the traditional family setup, I'm
Uh-huh.
still single. I mean, I was a single parent, since my youngest was 4 years old. And then I got married again, and that was a wonderful relationship that lasted actually for quite some time, and then two more children. But I don't know. Some people are built for it and some people aren't. So
I hear
I'm
you.
not. Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. And you have some grandkids too.
And I have grandkids. And I have,
Yeah,
yes,
that's
they're
awesome.
4 and 7, and I love them. And it's true. It's true. Having grandkids gives you a second chance.
Yeah, I hear you.
And
Oh,
yeah, it's yeah. So
yeah.
I've got what I wanted. I mean, it doesn't look exactly how I thought it was going to,
Mhm.
but I think that's another lesson, learning that it's not exactly what I thought it was going to look like, but I'm living it. It's happening for me.
Yes,
So,
yes. And
yeah.
defeating the odds against you from the miracle, constant miracles that's moved you into motherhood, where you were told by doctors, professionals, you wouldn't have an opportunity to become a mom, and
Yeah.
then having 3 kids, and then moving through single parents, and then becoming, as you stepped into your power and your purpose, this incredible costume designer. And it's just amazing in learning these things about yourself through this process. So you
Yeah.
started off costume. You started off. How does this happen? How does a visual designer who is a dancer, who's a single mom, get into costume designing? Please take us through that process.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of stories like mine, not identical, but like mine in similar in the process. So I'm always I love to tell my story, but I don't feel I'm unique, which I think maybe makes it easier for other people to, when I say that, to think, oh, well, I could do that then, or it could happen to me. Because really, my struggle is a struggle of a lot of women or men, through getting to where they are. I never thought I'd be here. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how a costume designer fit in. I didn't know the title. I didn't know how it fit into film. I didn't really know about film. I love film. I love movies. I love theater and dance. I loved all of it, but I just didn't know. I didn't go to theater or sorry, to film school. So my mother taught me how to sew. So I guess that's where it began. And when I was a gymnast, I started decorating my leotards and sort of, doing my own thing for competitions. And it really began there, I suppose. And then from that, when I aged out of gymnastics and started to dance, that was a wonderful time, because dance still, I think, is, at least in Canada, which is where I live, one of the most underfunded of the performing arts. And so having the ability to sew and create that way, and just even do repairs and alterations, was a huge asset. And that sort of morphed into, by the time I had my third child, doing a lot of dance costumes and creating a company for myself. And
Wow.
yeah, as like a company from home, basically. So I was working
Right.
at home with my baby underneath the sewing machine, and
Wow.
running kids off to school, like doing that whole thing. And
Wow.
that that business became too much for me on my own. So I partnered with a friend, which doesn't always work out. It worked for a while, but it's hard working with friends. So I decided that I needed to go back to fashion design school and see where that would lead me, see if there was something else, other direction I could go with my company. I didn't want to give it up, but I needed it. It needed to go somewhere else. So
Right.
I went back to fashion design school. And interestingly enough, that's where I met one woman who made her ultra clear to me that my idea of wanting and having children was something inherent in me. Because when I was speaking with her, she was working for Cirque du Soleil at the time. And she didn't have children. It was just a conversation we were having. And she said that she would never have children. That wasn't going to be a part of her path or her journey, because she was just too, in the best way possible, self-involved. And she just didn't think she would have enough to pass on to children. And that's when it hit me. So that was like, I don't know, that was like, I don't know, 8 years later, after starting this journey, that's where it hit me that it was never a question for me that I wanted children. Never a question.
Yeah.
And that's where it just sort of showed up for me that, wow, there's choices and people actually make other choices. But for me, it was always definitive. That's what I wanted. So while I was at fashion design school, there was a movie that came to town and they were looking for someone to make tutus for a male and a female performer. And I said, and they came to the school and said, does anybody, because it's hard to find someone to do this. And I said, yes. And that's when I began saying in a big way, yes, to things that were scary and unknown to me, but had some kind of allure and felt like maybe this was a part of my journey.
Yes.
And so 3 kids in school decided to say yes to this. So that's, after school, I'm creating these pieces, going to set for the first time and going to what in Canada they call the circus. In the US, it's called base camp, to this actor's trailer for the first fitting. And just everything about it appealed to me. Everything, the way the base camp was set up, the ADs, I didn't know what anybody was or what they were really doing, but it was really organized and people were on the fly and, windows with dark vans were pulling up and people were like sliding out with like privacy umbrellas. I was, oh my God, what's happening? I want to know more about this.
Yes.
And so that was my first venture into film and I was hooked. I was so intrigued. I just felt, I felt like I gotta know, I gotta go here. I want to know what this is. How can I be a part of this? And then from there, someone in the art department said, I have a friend who's a production designer. He does indies. And if you want, I'll give you his name. And this is back in the day before Instagram, before Facebook. So it was like the telephone or or a letter. So, so I reached out to him. I called him. He didn't have anything. I had 0 experience. So, and I very nicely for a year or more would call him once a month and just say, hey, I'm still interested. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Whatever, I just want to gain some experience. And he, at one point, he got an indie and it was a fairly big one. And he called me and said, I'm doing this. Do you want to do it? And I said, yes. I didn't ask what it was. I didn't ask anything about it. It was the scariest because I was prepared in no way for it. I had like that one moment of being on set and fitting these actors with the tutus. Long story short, it was a 9-week shoot, which was very long for an indie. I had 2 other people in my department that I hired that I didn't know. I had no idea how to read a call sheet. I didn't know what any of the little letters meant. I learned absolutely everything by listening and sometimes asking. I was too shy to ask, but so it was more listening and kind of like, covertly being in the corner, watching people. And I had one young man who came in and said, he learned that I got this job. He was at the same fashion design school as me, only a different year, and came and said, I have no experience, but I'll do anything. Can I work with you? And I said, oh, yes, because nobody else was asking me. And that was in 1994, I think. And I am still working with him today.
Wow.
So there's a lot in that story. And then from there, I made so many connections on that movie. There was a lot of producers and production managers that were also upgrading and stepping up. And also the producer on the show I'm working on right now was also a producer on that show, my very first indie.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
That's how the industry works, really.
Yeah.
It's really about curating relationships and finding people that have similar work processes and vision. And that's the goal. Yeah.
Now, Thank you. I mean, I'm excited. I have so much more to ask, but
Please,
here,
yeah,
those who are listening, I just want to be very clear, and I want you to pivot me in case, or
yeah,
add on in case that you hear I'm not hitting on exactly what you feel in your heart
sure,
should be
sure. Yeah,
resonating with people, but I hear from what I'm feeling this when you want to do something you love, there's a resilience that has to come with it. And that resilience, when you move with a level of integrity and you understand how to connect with others with that integrity in their heart, the doors open.
yes,
And the key here, I think, for so many people who are listening and who may be struggling with how do I get there? How do I make it happen? I think, especially as you pointed out, in your own will, determination, and resilience, you also have to curate these relationships with others
mhm,
because as they grow, you grow too. And it continues to foster so much because together you're building something, with those you're meeting. And that's how you can really, really show up in these different spaces, doing more what you love.
right.
So, that's what I've heard. As others to really,
That's
really understand that.
that's perfectly said, and that is one tool that even today I still don't have. I talk a lot,
Hmm.
and I talk in long flourishing sentences, and that's who I am. But I've always wanted to be, always wanted to have the capability of what you have, which is to be able to say succinct succinctly and beautifully in very
Oh,
poignant and pointed ways, not pointed, but precise ways, maybe, what my thoughts are. I kind of like, la, 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 I'm on and on, but I love the way you said that. Thank you very much.
oh, of
That's,
course. Well,
yeah,
thank you. I think it's so powerful. If I may, it's sort of like it's how we, a piece of sequence, can't do the job, can't has to come together with the thread so that you can make
yeah,
something beautiful. And so it takes the differences, it takes this weaving,
yes,
come together for us to be able to create something beautiful. I think that's what's so incredible here. And if I think that one of the things I've leaned into my strengths in terms of being a wordsmith, because I knew that it's something that people want of me. You know what I mean? And so
right,
I do to lean into that.
yeah,
Um, my own stories for the performing arts, but as I lean into that more, I grew confidently understood that this feels good to me.
right,
And
right,
so it's just like with in terms of your ability to know what works, what feels right for you, and what lights you up is so incredible. And I also discovered that I have my moon um is in my third house, and a lot of stuff is in my like the sign of Gemini, and so the communication
right, right, right.
comes in
Yes,
that space, which says so much about like our gifts and sort of who we are.
yes. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. Aw.
yeah. So we're coming together, we're creating something beautiful in
Yeah.
this way, flourishing, and the bringing of weaving of our destinies into something
Yeah.
great. I love
Isn't
that.
it exciting? It's just,
Yeah,
it's always a surprise to me, weirdly, but it's always a surprise, and then it's such a gift. And I just,
yeah,
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 yeah. So, okay,
yes,
can we talk about your current project? Because I still want to help others. You went from that indie and you grew these relationships, and the person that you were on that film with Sanaga was a producer, who's a producer now. You're
yes,
working with this current project. And
yes.
so could you tell us about this current project, or is it under lock and key?
I can tell you what it is, but I can't really talk about it yet.
Okay.
But
Okay.
it's called The Last of Us, and it's a series for HBO based on the game. So
Wow.
yeah, so we have the world exists in the game, but actualizing animated characters into human beings in front of a
Wow.
camera is a big
Wow.
process, and trying to stay true to the game and the story, which is an amazing game. If anybody's out there in a game or listening, of course you know what I'm talking about. But
Yeah.
it's an amazing award-winning game, and it's I think the reason that this is going to translate so well, because game to series or movie is not always a huge success. There's too
Right.
much invested in the game. There's too many, people
Yeah.
are live the games. So it's, I think this is going to be wonderful. This show was pitched to me as a love story. And I was like, what?
Wow.
It's
Wow.
post-apocalyptic. It's a love story to humanity. So
Wow.
that's the way the producers have approached making this project. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Okay. Wow. Thank you for sharing it. That's exciting. That's exciting.
Yeah. And it's one of
Yeah.
HBO's biggest projects for us. I've been on it for 14 months, for one
Wow.
season, for 10 episodes. That's a long time. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of their biggest projects that they've had happening for the last year and a half.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's amazing. So we're gonna talk a little about the industry.
Okay.
And because you mentioned now you got pitched this. So that means when somebody's being pitched something, you sound like you're pretty big in your industry.
I mean,
Right?
yes and no.
Mm.
Yes and no. And that's, sometimes I definitely suffer from imposter syndrome. And, I get to where I'm at on some shows and I'm like, I don't think I should be here. I don't think I'm really here. I think that's okay. I think it's okay to stay humble. I think it's actually a good thing because, you need to be confident, but humble, I think, is also not a bad thing.
Yes.
But there's a lot of people like me out in this industry. There, I was just actually looking at another agency online. Not that I'm moving, I'm happy where I am, but
Right.
just to see where people are at. And I was looking through this agency and such phenomenal work by their crews and costume designers, and so many people I've never heard of. So
Wow.
there's a lot, and I don't even know what a lot is, but I couldn't put a number to it. There are a lot of people in this industry. So yes, it's really important to find your people, just like
Yeah.
in life. And I think that becomes important to you as you become older within the industry, because you want, you're creating every time, and every time you begin a new show, a new project, whether it's a commercial or a giant feature film or anything in between, you have to create relationships first with the people you're working with, because
Right.
you're not just coming in and crunching numbers, you're coming in and trying to get together in a creative field.
Yes. Yes.
And we're all here to paint the picture for the director. So it's important to find your people so that you aren't having to recreate new relationships every time.
Yeah.
You can, and certainly that still happens to me, but it's just more comfortable if you don't have to start off just being, try to be friends first. So
Right.
figuring out how you fit in, and because that shifts around. So I think that's not your question, but your question is, how do you get from indie to feature film or
the HBO? Awesome. From tutu.
Yeah, from tutus. Yeah.
Say it again.
From tutus to wherever I'm at now.
Costume design. Yeah.
Costume design.
You mentioned something really, really powerful. I just want to hit on as well, really quickly, that oh gosh, it was about making sure these relationships that you have were built, finding your tribe, right?
Finding your tribe. Yeah.
Is that an energy thing? Is it like, I know what films I want to be on?
Yes.
I vibrate with people in a certain way. And you also mentioned, just for those who are out there, which I think is really, really empowering for many people who are watching, is that it sounds like by looking or visiting this other agency, that the opportunities are incredible. Like, they're insurmountable. What's out there, what's available is just beyond.
Yes.
That many people can be doing the things they love in this industry, but you have to have a certain tenacity, skill, willpower, intuition, all the things necessary to get you there.
Yeah.
Finding your tribe. Tell us, how did that work for you? Like, how did you?
That there's many steps to that. And I think when you're first starting out, it's not really about finding your tribe. Or if you have, what's the right way to put this? If you have the ability to take time and find your tribe. But so many of us, when we start out, we're just looking for a project, any project. We're looking
Right.
we're looking for experience, and we're trying to figure it out. We don't, unless you're out of film school and you've had a really put in a really great direction. Most of us just don't know what we're looking for in film. We know we want to do it, but
Yeah.
do you want to be in commercials? Do you want to be in indies only? Indies tend to be non-union, not have a lot of money, although some do, and a lot of them wind up going to places like Cannes. So there's got to be money behind them, or they're looking for someone to buy them at that point. But when you're making it, the money on the ground everything's going into what's on the camera because it has to. So that means wages, et cetera, are lower. And also, that's something else when you first start out, you don't know how much money to ask for, especially if you're not in a union. You don't have a guideline unless you have someone who's been helping you and sort of guiding you and telling you, giving you helpful hints on what to ask for yourself. The first shows I worked on, I never got a car allowance, and or gas paid for, or a lot of things that you might not think of, but as a costume designer, especially if you're shopping a show, that's what you're doing. You're driving, right. You're using your own your cars, your own irons, your own ironing board, your whatever, because the show probably doesn't have much money. You want to be paid. So you're just making it happen. And that's the beauty of an indie, I think. The best indies. Everyone's invested. Everybody's in it to make something really beautiful. Not that that's not the goal in every sort of sense of the word for all of film, but an indie is usually a friend of a friend has said, my friend is a director and is doing this, and they're looking for someone and they can't find anybody, and are you interested? And that's how I got my first one. So everybody's very invested because they're there to learn, and once you get in with that creative group of people that are just trying to make something beautiful, and the director is usually the writer of the project, so it's just all coming from the heart. And then there's things all along the way, and then there's things you can't do, and you can't have that camera, and you can't do this, or on that first film that I did, my costume truck was a 1-ton, like a Hertz rental 1-ton, like a box, a cube van, and I drove it.
Wow.
For the first 3 weeks, I drove it because costumes is the first in and often the first out, and I drove it for the first 3 weeks until I was crying because I had to drive it back to the lot at the end of the night. So I'd be like, I'm just so tired. And someone else in the production spoke up and said, she can't do that anymore. Like, somebody else has to drive that truck. So you don't know. I don't even know if that was legal for me to be driving that truck. So in any case, you do it because you're passionate about it and you're involved. And indies tend to encapsulate that in a very profound and big way. Once you get into something that's bigger and becomes, network driven or studio driven, there's budgets, it's way more, it's a little more corporate. I hate using that word, but it's the truth. It's when you get into that world, films and series and streamers, they're making money. This is a business. So there is that aspect in a much bigger way. So that's a learning curve. And that's when you realize you're in it with a collaborative group that's being driven by a larger entity. And there's a lot more collaboration, but there's a lot more, it's hard to learn this too. There's a lot more giving up. You can't stand your ground so firmly on things that you think are perfect and need to be this way, because there's a lot more going on. There's a lot more collaborating. I mean, you're always collaborating, but this show I'm on right now is so large. It's the largest production I've ever been on, where the crossover between departments is a daily occurrence. So I'm not just considering what's on the page, what the director wants, what the producers wants, which is sometimes different than the actor standing in front of me, what they want out of the character, what they need to put on to make them feel the character, what the stunts need. Now I'm also dealing with makeup effects in a really big way. Makeup effect is not just makeup, but it's specialty makeup for anybody who's not sure. And there's creatures in what I'm doing now. And so makeup effects is building the creatures and the makeup that's glued to people's faces, which integrates into costumes. So we work daily with makeup effects. And then visual effects is also very large on this show. So, which I've worked with before, but not at this level and this intensity. So there's a lot of people trying to make this happen, a lot of visuals trying to come together. And you really have to learn to pick your battles. You need to learn all of the aspects of where your costume is going to go and how it's going to work for all these other departments before it gets on the screen. So, that does exist in indies, but indies tend to be more grounded stories about people, about life.
Yeah.
Visually so beautiful to look at.
Yeah.
And then, when you get into these other worlds of sci-fi or period, or it all becomes something, it's the same at the core, but it's very different. So you have to really learn to move with it. And Ruth Carter, who I just think is phenomenal as a costume designer, obviously she is. She, in an interview, said, sometimes you just have to learn to get out of your own way, because in life and in designing, if you just get stuck in this, you become, I don't know, you become difficult, but you also become difficult to yourself. Like you block yourself. You have to move so that you can keep the collaboration open and moving. And so I've gotten off topic a little bit, but indies are usually smaller and a little more homespun in a really beautiful way, I think. Some of them are shorts, which is like, I don't know. I've actually only done one short ever, but I think they're like 15 minutes or under, something like that. Short films, which are also a great way to get into the business. Commercials can be small or large. Music videos, there's so much. There's a lot of avenues to try and get in or find what you like to do. I have friends who are designers and they only do commercials. They love it because it's quick. They're quick. There's a lot of creating in the moment, whereas in film, you have to anticipate ahead of time where this character is going to be in all their different scenarios and who they're going to be in the room with and what everyone else is wearing in that scene. And if there's stunt doubles, if there's stand-ins, if there's photo doubles. So is there going to be rigging? Are people going to be flying? Commercials can be really just so, I think, creative in the moment, like doing a photo shoot. You have the base there, but there's a lot of movement and a lot of like, oh, let's do this. Or there's a lot of space, I think, to change, whereas films are a little more locked in.
Beautifully said. So thank you for that. So and I love that you gave us so much, because it is necessary for our, one of the things that I love, why I love doing this in terms of these interviews, is because I think we fail so many young people with the idea of overnight success and the idea of, I'm not trying to go on anyone, but or anything, but like if somebody is seen on a competition show and they think that they'll win a lot of money and then they'll be the next big thing.
Right.
But there is hard, and there's so many reality shows that have, I think, done a poor job representing the industry and really how to succeed in this industry. And so many young people are trapped in between what they're being fed and what actually is the truth. And here you are explaining the truth through your experiences about how to make it in what you love in an industry that's so rigorous. It is, it requires a lot of willpower, resiliency. You have to know how to show up for yourself. And so with the tribe, it sounds like for me that you started off discovering different things that you liked. Yes. And then you leaned into really what it was you liked and found the same people who like those things with you. Yeah. And then with that, you experienced a union and then, non-union work, which you found the heart of something. You sound like you're a heart-centered creative, right? Who loves these things. You get into the heart of it. And then that allowed you to also expand into union work, as well as I'm sure that the idea that knowing who you're telling me you are, you want to take on the challenges, you want to show up, you are competitive, right? So you want to move in that direction and see what on the corporate side of things, how that works, and still connect with tribe in that way. You know, that heart-centeredness, which is so important because in the corporate side, like you were saying, they have some, which is the union or big projects like the one you're on now, where they have it can only be my intuitive understanding, which you didn't mention this, but I have a feeling that, you know, when they invest in, let's just say $20 million, $30 million, or actually that might be low budget considering what, you know, let's just say 100 million, right? They invested 100 million. They're going to have people who are going to sit down and meticulously go through the details of how to make this work on a marketing end, and then trickle that down into kind of like what they want everyone else to do to meet those marketing demands so that it then succeeds in a big way to recoup all of that money. Yeah. So, you know, while it's about the investment and of course bringing us this joy of entertainment, you know, the corporate world is like, we want to make this money back. And in doing so, we have to do. So you have a beautiful understanding of knowing like the differences in these different arenas and how you fit in, you know, in each of those ways and play your part back to what you know you love. And so many people get so stuck in, like, you know, you mentioned her name was Ruth, what again?
Ruth Carter.
Ruth Carter, thank you. And knowing when to get out of the way, you know, and because they want to be this, and here you give us the magic. You're like, you have to know, you know, your part in everything.
And I want to say, you know, that interview that I heard Ruth say that in was only 2 years ago. So I'm always still coming to aha moments of, you know, of realization. And also, I just also want to say, I've been doing this for almost 30 years. So I started young. I started very young, but I'm doing almost 30 years. And the first 10 years were not easy. They were not easy. And even if I did not have children and even if I wasn't a single parent, even if I was a teenager and I became a parent. So everybody knows that story. It just puts you miss your 20s, basically. You miss the college years and the fun all that, you miss that. I'm not sad I missed that. I'm not saying that, but I became a parent and a responsible adult right away at 20. That was for me. So I needed to find, like I said, I worked at a bank. I worked all sorts of places, but I knew that at the end of the day, I was a creative. And if I was going to do any justice to myself, if I had to do this, if I wasn't a stay-at-home mom and I had to get out there, I needed to do something that could keep my spirit afloat. And so for the first 10 years of film, after I got the first one, I did not great stuff. Sorry to anybody who knows me, who knows what I'm talking about. But they were like low budget, non-union or, you know, low budget union films. They were not great, but I did them because I couldn't stop at the first fabulous and it was called Double Happiness, the movie I did, the first one. I couldn't just stop at that. If I was going to keep going, if this was my path, I needed to keep leapfrogging into whatever was the next thing. Even I didn't do anything that I found that was horrific. Do you know what I mean? Like I didn't do anything that compromised my
Right.
sense of right and wrong or any of that kind of
Right.
thing. But they
Right.
weren't great shows, and that was back in movie of the week time when networks did movies of the week.
Right. Right.
So it was that sort of genre, and it wasn't that fulfilling, but I was gaining so much experience and gaining relationships. And I didn't work with the producer I'm working with on this show, who was the producer of my first one, until I want to say 12 years later. Because in that time, I was building up my resume and I was building up my relationships and building, just building up my experience. So my message there is, yes, overnight success is a fallacy, because even if you do hit it, and even if someone did pick you up, and this happens more with above the line, which I really dislike that, that I dislike that. So I work below the line. In film, there is above the line. Above the line is directors, producers, actors, that sort of. Below the line are the creatives. It's crazy because the creatives make the production.
Yes.
And above and below the line also basically denotes, network or studio, and then creatives. So therein lies the money people and the people making it. So,
Yes.
but it exists, and it's a system that more or less works, and it's it's constantly changing. But the basic premise of how it works, in my experience over my 30 years, is the same. But yes, overnight success really applies mostly to actors, I think, or a director who has a first-time movie and it's a hit. Then Hollywood zooms in, and the promotional machine starts working, and hopefully there's another hit after that. But we all know those stories.
I know.
Between as well. So you have to keep at it. You have to keep at it until you find your niche, and even find what kind of genre of film you want to work in. You may think you love horror. You may get there and realize how horror films are made and just be bored with it, or or it may take or you may love it. Who knows? But yeah, you have to be open to all genres, all experiences, say yes to everything without compromising your safety and health.
That's right.
And frame of mind. I think that applies to a lot of things in life, though.
That's right. So thank you for that. I'm curious about the importance of agents, because you have an agent, correct?
Yeah.
And how does that world work in terms of needing to get booked for having representation, and how important it is in terms of booking work? How does that work? Do you need an agent? Do you not need an agent? It's in terms of the work you're looking for, how does that work?
I think you figure that out as you go along. And I didn't do union work for probably the first 8 years that I was in the industry, and I didn't want to. But there was a point where I realized that if I wanted to move up or over or into a different genre or find new people to work with, I needed to join a union, the union that represented film and television, and which is IATSE in North America and abroad, maybe. In any case, it's North America strong, and just to be able to access a higher level of production, I knew that I was going to have to join a union to do that. And then I did that for a while, and until I got a agent in 2004 maybe. So I didn't get an agent till later, because I was on some kind of path and it was working for me. But then again, I got to another stage where now I need connections that I can't get, that I'm not getting with what I know and who I am involved with at this point. So that's the next step. Okay, you need representation to promote you. And that's exactly what they did. And and I've been with an agent ever since. And I only recently changed agencies. So that's another part of it where I felt like the agent I was with, agency I was with for a long time. I've lost space of time here of years, but a long time. But I got to a point where I felt like maybe maybe they tapped out for me. Maybe I was seeing what other people were doing, and I was feeling like, well, why didn't that come to me, or why didn't I even know about it? Because I can also push myself for myself. But so it felt like time to move on. So I'm 2 years now with a new agent, and it's been great. And that's exactly what's happened. New agency, new connections. It's all about connections. However you get them, it's all about connections. So
thank you for sharing that. So what I'm hearing especially is that there comes a point in life where you want to grow. And when you want to grow, there are new levels to experience in your profession. And so you wanted to grow into a more promotional opportunities, having more promotional opportunities to get to another level of what your vision is for yourself. And there you met the agent. And so it wasn't necessarily for the beginning, it was at a natural, organic time in which you desired more growth, and then the agent came.
It feels, I think people learn. I know I have friends who are designers who are quite happy. They've got other things going on in their lives. They even have, they've got other things going on. So they want to keep designing, but they don't want their time, they don't want more of their time given to their craft. They're happy with the amount of time they're giving. They're happy with what they're getting back. And they're happy with the time that is allotted to them for the other things they're pursuing in life. And it's so hard not to say people's names. And for me, I'm not there yet. I'm just not there yet. I have fantasies. Like, I feel like I live at both ends of the spectrum, and I never really hang in the middle much. So I'm either like, what's next? It's got to be better. It's got to be at another level. Okay, I need to do this. I need to do that. I want to work in this genre. Okay, let's go. And, and then awards factor into that at some point as well. And that's a whole other conversation where I'm having a feeling about that right now. And, but the other end of the spectrum for me is, I want to sell my house and buy a house in a very small community. And I want at least 5 acres so I have no neighbors. That's the world I live in. So I live in a world where it's all like incredibly public and everything. And then the other part, I think a lot of people in an industry like this have that on in their life. Right. Because you're so all in when you're in it. And the industry's gotten better in relation to family and women with family. It's not great still, but it's much better than it was when I started, and especially when I gained my first agent. The conversation was, don't talk about your children.
Wow.
People don't talk about your children, because Hollywood is ageist and it's sexist, and it's someone else told me that, producers want to know that they have all of you when you come to work. Because, not that I support that wholeheartedly 100%, but to put it in perspective, it's a short-term job. Whether you are doing a series and you're doing multiple seasons of a series, the next season is not guaranteed. It's not guaranteed that it's going to come, and it's not guaranteed they're going to pick you and bring you back. That may be their intent, but who knows what happens between season 1 and 2. And films, films for TV are very short runs. Feature films, some can go for years, but most go for 4 months. So you're working as a private contractor, nothing is guaranteed. And now I'm way off track and I've totally forgot my train of thought, but
that's okay.
I don't know what I was talking about. Oh, family.
No.
So
right.
because we're creating in a bubble and because we're creating in a short time period, most of the time, you really do have to be 99% invested and 1% is your personal life while you're making this project. And I think once you get into it and once you get into the flow of that,
Mhm.
it's true for yourself as well, because it's a creative process. And
Mhm.
liking a painter's or a writer, if you're in the flow and it's coming out, you've got to get it on the page, or you've got to get it on the canvas, or you've got to get it on a body, or if you're a fashion designer or costume designer, and then because that the dry spells are going to come, your creative dry spells, you're going to, I posted one photo at one point, I can't remember what show, and it was all my mannequins in the photo booth. And I had been sitting there with them for the better part of 2 days, and they were naked. They had nothing on them. And that was a picture of what was happening in my brain.
Wow.
I had nothing. I just had nothing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it
Wow.
came, but that happens. So that when you're in this creative process and now you're working with a company, there's a time frame on it. And those moments of nothing are frightening because you don't have time for them.
Yes.
So yes. So all to say, creating in a crunch, and whether it's a year or whether it's 2 months or a month, or I don't know, if you're doing commercials 7 days or 2 weeks. Yeah. So it's hard on family. That's the biggest question all the time. How do you work in film with family? Never mind the single parent part or any of that. Just how do you work? People ask me that all the time. There's a way. And one psychiatrist told me once, this is what your children know. And they're being fulfilled. They're getting what they need in life. They have opportunities. They aren't suffering in any kind of way. And no, it's not a traditional stay at home or one parent staying at home, even, never mind just the mom. This is what they know. And their family and their life involves a village, a tribe, and everybody steps up. And there's sort of a, my best friend across the street who was the second mom for my kids, which was hard for me personally because I wanted to be the only mom. But that was a sacrifice for me, but was never sold to my children as a sacrifice. It was sort of presented to them as something they grew up with. And it's made them the people they are today. My situation made me the person I am today. I think there's positive in all of it, but the film industry is definitely something that is hard for families, but you can find a way. That's my spiel. You can find a way. And then I think it's maybe probably incredibly important to know when you need to give time to the family when they need it. And that's the sacrifice. And sometimes that's not, don't take the next job. Or in fact, yesterday, I was faced with my family dynamic now is different. My parents are in a home. They're old, elderly, and my kids are adults. And of course, I'm a grandma. So it's my dynamic has changed, but the family needs, if you are if you are a family person and invested and need to be there for them, is the same. And I just took another new show yesterday, but there was another opportunity that came up that was amazing and next level for me. But I had to make the choice of family over next project. And I had to take the other project that would take me back home so I could work in my hometown so that I could facilitate family needs at the time. And that's not easy sometimes, but I've been doing this long enough now too, where I'm at a point where I can both emotionally and financially, I'm lucky there, make those kind of decisions. Where when I was young, I didn't have that opportunity. I needed the money, I needed the experience, I needed to gain all of those things. So it's a progression. And if you have a partner, I didn't have a partner in any of it, but if you have a partner to help you raise your kids while you're in this industry, I mean, obviously that's way better. So you can do it. You can do it.
Yeah. Wow, Cynthia, I'm blown away. You just shared just a treasure of so much gems that I feel like it just it's incredible. I really don't even have any words for it, from owning the journey, your own journey, to and understanding what is fulfilling for you, to balancing life, learning when you want to level up for yourself, taking the things that feel right for you, and along the way knowing that this is what is true to you, and not needing to wonder, I'm sure sometimes we think later on in life, is
Oh,
this right, is
yeah.
this right, but ultimately settling into the moment of what feels right.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's so key
Yeah.
to having a life that you're creating on your terms
Yeah.
and owning your journey. I think that's just so key. And how you express that and experience that, and telling us from the beginning how you were challenged and needed to overcome the issue of not expressing. And I can't speak for you because you didn't say that you didn't express, that you didn't have family, or that you didn't express to producers that you had a family.
Hmm.
But you knew that what it was that you needed to do in order to really get there to
Yeah.
where you knew you want. And in those, if I may, some of the sacrifices made to move in that direction, and then dealing with the what you may have felt you some inner turmoil about it, and
Yeah.
finding someone to help you that then made you aware that you're doing the best you can, and have raised beautiful children that represent the love that you poured into all that you love,
Yeah.
and especially with them. And so it just, from mental health into, and how to handle that, into choices, the power of our choices, into owning your own journey, into the struggles, and still knowing what's best. This recent experience of, this
Yeah.
is a huge problem for me, but I want to be home, and
Yeah.
knowing that I can. So, and it sounds like that for many people, that the wisdom is what makes us so powerful.
Yeah.
Often the experiences, the challenges are always going to come.
Yes. 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 Exactly. Exactly. The even though, as you say, so it's so wonderful that I'm getting a lot of therapy out of this, let me tell you. So
Oh,
this conversation, when I first started out, I I I don't think I was totally conscious that I was choosing my own path. In fact, I know I wasn't. I wasn't. I was in survival mode. I was in, and I think that's so relevant for so many people. When you're going through phases of life, you are hopefully making choices that are for your heart at the end of the day and for your soul. But in the moment, you don't see it that way. I saw that I needed to get a job. I needed to support my child. And then the next two came. And then after that, it was more singleness. And it was, I need to, but if I'm going to do this, I need to do something that will fulfill me on some level. It can't be 100% because I'm just not a singular person anymore. I'm living mostly for my children, not mostly,
right,
you know what I mean? They're my priority.
right.
Even though that may not be what it looks like on the outside, because when you're and especially a woman, when you're pursuing a career that takes you away from your family or your children, there's a lot of scrutiny over that, over you doing that, from family, from people around you. There's a lot of questions. What about, from employers? What about daycare? How are you going to manage that? And that doesn't just apply to film. It applies to every walk of life, every industry. And just to go back a little bit more, I grew up with a father that was away a lot because he was a fisherman, and he was the son of a fisherman. And so he would go out to sea, and sometimes he would go out in the herring and he'd be gone for 2 months. So
Wow.
I think as a child, I learned that, absence isn't absence. It's just I don't know how to put this. It's just a fact of life. I mean, that was his job. That was his job to support the family. I understand. I spent enough time at the docks around the boats to know what went on. I saw him in his environment, and with his all of the other people he worked with, and the boats he built and everything. And he was creative that way. And I learned early on that, not every job is 9 to 5. Not every job is, my grandfather went away to war. He was gone for 3 years.
Wow.
And that was World War II. So that was,
Wow.
you didn't get to go home for vacations.
Right.
You were there until it was over, kind of thing.
Right.
So
Right.
this has existed, parents who are out working and away from the family has always existed. It's just, the 1950s idea of the family with the wife at home and the man who goes to 9 to 5 and comes home and has a cocktail and dinner's on the table.
Yes.
It's not real. It's not
Right.
real. But we're still told that. We're still told that. And it's just, there's other ways to do it. And
Yeah.
that's my rant
Yeah.
on that.
That's powerful. That's powerful. It's so powerful. It's really, really powerful. Thank
Yeah.
you for that. Wow. So, okay. I want to go into a direction because you took on the Babysitters Club.
Yes.
You got the Emmy for
Yes.
designing. Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. But your agent at the time, or your agent said, don't take it.
Yes. So, so I'm also a serial worker, if that's a term. I love work.
I'm gonna steal that. I love that.
I
love that.
I like to be working. And now that, of course, my time is more my own now. So I like to be working. I'm also a busy person. I've always been a busy person. So I have to be doing something, creating, doing something. So plus I'm pretty competitive. I'm very self-competitive, which is both a blessing and a curse. So I can't remember even now what I had done before Babysitters, but I'm on this trajectory. And this was my agent before I moved. And this wasn't their fault. This was my choice. So I can't remember what the show was before I did Babysitters, but I'm on this trajectory up or out into other genres. And Babysitters came, I can't even remember how. And so this happens. So you have an agent, but not all people reach out to your agent. A lot of times they will reach out to you personally first, which infuriates agents and scares the crap out of me because I'm talk a lot. I'm not a good money person. Inevitably producers want to talk to you about money, and agents are all, don't talk about money, let me do that. So this came my way. It was new producers, people I hadn't worked with, and I'm forgetting now the connection. But in any case, I sort of turned to some of my crew at one point, and my daughter, who grew up with the books of the Babysitters Club, and I was like, Babysitters, it's like a half-hour children's book anthology. It's been done before. They did the series in the 90s. Babysitters. And the look on my assistant's face and my daughter's was like, oh my God, the Babysitters Club? And I was like, oh, okay, so maybe this is something I should think about. And I said to my daughter, Phoebe, I'm like, how come, did you read the Babysitters? And she said, yeah, you were at work. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. So she was into the Babysitters books. And so I looked into it. And of course, they're amazing books for young girls. And they're empowering books for girls. And the Babysitters Club is all about girls creating work experiences for themselves, entrepreneurs. So, okay, well, that's great. So the new version, so I spoke to the producer, she pitched me the show, and they want it to be more diverse, more inclusive of today's politics and issues that young girls are dealing with. They want a new, fresh take on sort of the Gen Z version of Babysitters. And I was like, okay, this sounds like it spoke to my heart. It didn't speak to my bank account or my, ladder, my career ladder. It just spoke to my heart. And my next project wasn't going to be for a little while. So, and it was at home. The project was at home. And
Meaning that in your hometown.
My hometown.
Gotcha.
And so I was like, okay, so look at all the pluses there. Okay. So I went to my agent and I said, they've reached out to me and they're like, don't go there. And I'm like, why not? And they were like, well, you're on this trajectory. You don't want this on your resume because producers looking at her are going to go like, babysitters. What happened? Is she fallen off the, ladder? What's happening? Why is she doing that? And I was like, but I like the people that I'm speaking to. I like the books. My crew are like excited to tap into this. It's something from their childhood that makes them excited. We can work together on this. It'd be a nice, it felt like something I would be doing with my family. So I'm looking at it like that. And it might be a nightmare because they don't have as much money. It's a short shoot period, the shortest I've ever done. I don't know anything about the cast that they're casting, et cetera, et cetera. And anyways, everyone fought me on it. And I just said, you know what, I'm going to do it, which didn't make a lot of people very happy, but it made me happy and it made my crew happy. And then, we all agreed to do it, and we all agreed to do it for reduced rates. We all agreed on all of the things that we were not going to be getting on this show for the experience of it. It was a really tough show because of all of those things. And it was large because it's kids. So there's school. So there's a lot of bodies to dress. Each of the 5 characters are very well written in the book and in Martin's books. Very well. They all have specific, if you don't know the books, they all have specific characters, ethnicities, family situations. They're dealing with becoming young women. The kids are between 12 and 14, becoming all those things that young women start going through at that stage of life, politics of the time, social politics. It was so rich and so full. And the amazing young actresses that they cast were, pretty new. Whether they've had some experience, but they were very new. They were so excited about their characters. And the producers showed me their audition tape of when they found out as a group that they'd each gotten the part of their characters. And they were standing in a line against a wall and they were holding up their little paper that said their name. And I think their name and their character, maybe I'm remembering it wrong. But anyways, they're standing in a line against the wall and they said, they announced to them as a group that they've all been cast as their characters. And there was like a pregnant pause and they were all like shocked. And then they're, screaming and dancing and jumping and hugging. And that's what the show was. That's what the show was. It was 5 young girls plus all of their cast siblings and their cast parents and the schoolmates and, other characters that came in. It was really physically a hard show, but the heart of it was these 5 amazing young women and their characters being brought to the screen in a current, refreshed version with today's politics involved. And they were the greatest kids. I loved working with them. And
wow.
What doesn't happen all the time because, it's hard to be the parent of a young actor. It's really difficult. You're up against a lot. You've got to be the advocate for your child. You have to be on set with them. It's really a hard job. So, but these parents, mostly moms, and a couple of dads, were the best stage parents. The whole experience, and we're all still connected. We all still talk. And the girls now have moved on. It's 2 years later for me. The girls have moved on and are doing great things and becoming these amazing young women. It's just, I mean,
Yeah, even
kids make me teary anyways. You could show
I'm
me,
crying.
picture of a baby and I'll start falling. So it was on that level, and plus the icing on the cake was we got an Emmy for the show. So,
Yeah.
you know, uh, yeah, it was a choice I made at the time. No one wanted me to do it. No one understood why I wanted to do it. And I think today they still don't understand where that fits in my career on paper. And in fact, I'm been advised not to put it on my resume, but I was adamant to put it on. I mean, if you're looking at it the way producers and networks look at it, we won an Emmy for it. And awards aren't everything, but when networks they look at the directors you work with, the studios you work with, because they all know who those people are and the dollars that go with that. And then they look at awards. You're always presented as, 2-time Emmy nominated or blah, 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 or, Academy Award winning. That's big in Hollywood. So, I stand on that. So look, see, that was again my challenge, and I took the challenge, and I'm going to show you. And I guess that's a part of my makeup, and it's
yes.
But it was also joyful. It was really hard, and there were hard moments because it just was. But it was so joyful, and it's still one of the most heartwarming projects I've been on. And
wow,
I'm proud of it. I didn't do season 2. The designer who did season 2 did an amazing job, but season 1 was all I needed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful work. Wow. I love stories like that. I love when I hear dreams come true that way. I started crying. The kids come around as something being born of so much love.
Yeah.
That is about telling empowering stories, which so many young people need.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes.
I love that.
Babysitters really, I mean, they got a Peabody Award, so they got all sorts of awards for the version of Babysitters. And I think because also they were able to show and speak about, we had a Japanese American family with Claudia, who's like the clothes horse of the show. She was like the creative artist, always dressing to her spirit. So, so great. And, they showed sort of, what it's like to grow up in a Japanese American family and the expectations of children from that cultural avenue, and her relationship with her grandmother, and her grandmother becomes very ill, and sort of how the family rallies together, because she was sort of a standout from her family. She didn't kind of fit into the norm. Her grades weren't as good, all of that. And then we have, single parent families and blended families and divorced families. And it's just really an amazing show geared towards young girls. I think obviously, anybody could reap a lot from it, but it's definitely meant, that's the target audience. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Beautiful. So great. Maybe it spoke to me because I am a woman and I was a girl at one point, and I do relate, and maybe that's also why, but that's why I chose it, I guess.
So this brings me to being a part of the conversation, what that means, being in this industry, being a part of the conversation. Yes. If it's okay, could you explain that what you gathered from that experience and how you know the importance of being a part of the conversation?
Yeah. And of course, being a conversation as a white woman or a white person is so relevant right now. And I have always kind of existed on this level of everything is great. And everybody globally, we're all, this is so like, now I can't even hardly say it. Globally, we're all family, and we're all, I don't even know how to articulate this anymore, because now I have to relearn how to say this. And I'm happy to and want to, and I'm still not all the way there. because I think it's going to always be evolving. But I've never been really a very politically involved person. I guess maybe that's a good place to start.
Yes.
So never really put color and ethnicity and even cultural aspects of all of us humans on this planet as a challenge. For me, it's always been, I'm so bored where I'm at, and where you're at is so culturally amazing and interesting, partly because I don't know it, but it just looks like more and better than where I'm at. So that was my take on it. I always wanted to learn what everybody else was living and what that meant for them. But I never really touched down on the politics of it all. And actually, where maybe growing up in Canada, it was, I don't want to say it was different because I know it existed, but I wasn't faced with it, maybe racial discrimination on the level that it is, that we know that it is now, and it always has been. It just was, I lived, I guess, I never was that involved with it politically, because I just thought it was all okay and we were all okay. And now I know that that's irresponsible. Now I know that you have to acknowledge, and you have to acknowledge people's struggles and people's whatever that is, whether it's cultural or whether it's being excluded or whether it's gender specific, or I just was living too much in this sort of naive zone on, I guess, of that. In the political climate that we're experiencing now in North America was a hard lesson for me, in that no one was unkind to me, no one excluded me, but I felt an exclusion. And that was all me. That was all me. Nobody, I felt an exclusion because the group of people that were having a good time were a good time on the film, and it felt like a family. I didn't fit in. And I don't think they didn't welcome me. It's just they were living that moment and I didn't really fit in. And then I didn't know, once I felt that, how to fit in, how to make myself feel in a comfortable place to step into the group and say, or not even say anything, but just, become a part of the group. And there were some politics that were going on as well. And so I just felt like I just moved away from the group and sort of isolated myself in a way. And I was having some difficulties in the show, just production difficulties. So, and it wasn't wrong or bad. It just was like, I was also dealing with that. So I kind of just withdrew, and that was the wrong thing to do. And inherently I knew it was the wrong thing to do, but I just, in trying to get this film made and deal with the day-to-day, I didn't find the time for myself here to open a door for myself, to make myself feel a part of the group. So it sort of grew wide. The void grew wide because yes, we were making a film, we have limited time and all of that factored into it. So there were a few people on the show. I don't want to name names because I think that I don't want to, but there were a few people on the show who recognized what I was going through and were very gracious in speaking to me about it. And so this show was a lesson for me in, I learned that just because I don't totally believe in the politics of race, that I had to. I had to learn what was as much as I could, and apply it to who I think I am, to be a part of the conversation instead of just letting the conversation happen and feel like I'm okay because I don't agree with all these bad politics and the politics of race. But I don't know if I'm saying this right. I learned that I had to be more self-aware, and in being more self-aware, that actually includes me in the conversation. and anything that I would feel about being excluded just by visuals or by harmony of group is my own issue and my own, I don't want to say fault, but fault that I need to work out. I need to work with. It was the first time I was faced with it in that sort of.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. So, yes, so you had the experience with the a mostly African American cast 20 years previous.
Yeah, different.
You both had this experience,
Yeah,
another experience,
yeah.
where now you're learning something new about yourself.
I am. And you know, the difference in the 20 years is the conversation is, I mean, the situation is, I'm suppose most of us, or hopefully most of us know that the situation in North America has been like this forever. And the politics have been the same. The violence is the same, but now we're all seeing it. Perhaps it's, you know, social media. And now we're more involved, but now it's sort of, we have to reassess everything. So the way the situation worked for me in the film 20 years ago was good for me, but that doesn't mean it was good for everybody else. And now it's not good for everybody else. And I didn't really clock that and put it all together until I was in this new film with the politics as they are today. And
Right.
so what I knew and what I thought was okay and how to thought was okay, this is hard to talk about, thought was okay how to be, doesn't apply anymore. And and it took me, it kind of took me by surprise. So, and while you're in this machine of trying to make this movie and make it fast and everything else going on, it just kind of blindsided me a little. And then all that comes with that, I should have known, why didn't I know, all the self questioning and all the self-realization of, you know, I have a lot of work to do. And I knew I did, but I didn't know I had this much work to do. And, you know, the shame that comes with that and but I was in a place where people were graceful and probably saw more of that than I, you know, realized more of that in me than I even knew, and were gracious about it. So I was very blessed, and that's put me on a new learning curve and path, and I have a long way to go.
Yeah,
I think at the core, I still have the same sentiments. I still feel like we're all people and we should just be able to get along together. That's my core of me. But obviously, that's just so simple. That's such a simple way to look at it. And
right.
And in my advanced years on this planet, you know, I now know I have to be a bigger part of the conversation.
That's right. Well,
so, yeah.
You know, thank you for sharing that. I know that's not the easiest thing to experience and to share, and to even know that, you know, it's like, you know, maybe I can, for those who hear this, because we all have to go through an awakening, and our awakening is sometimes not the kindest. Because the lessons of that, it's like coming out of a sleep that you don't want to wake up from, you know. And so it's just this dream, you know, in terms of what that feels like. And for myself, I feel like I in terms of the awakening towards a greater sense of purpose, you know, and knowing what it is to have an experience that we call life, the experiences of life, and what we're going to do while we're here to actually change, you know, change ourselves, but change things that other people can then be able to, other generations can then be able to say for us, thank you for making those changes, if they ever understood that, you know, if they can. The meaning and purpose of that and the awakening to that is so precious. So I just want to say thank you for sharing that and coming into your awakening. in that way, which is not always the easiest.
No.
Um, and just speaking to, okay, I know more of, if I may, meaning, purpose.
Yeah.
I want to be a part of something larger, and how I want to show up now and dedicate, commit to what that is, because of my experiences, because I know, you know, I have a sense of purpose, more purpose.
Yes.
In life. So I completely, you know, completely understand. Completely understand. And it feels like I'm having now construction outside of my building. But it feels like I feel like time, there's a divine timing in everything. And that when it's right, it's right.
Yes.
You know, and I feel like because you are someone who, you get it, it came to you because you get it, because you understand it. And some people will go through life not having that gift, which we need to be more awakened to, so we can do much more.
Yes.
You know, so thank you for, you know, in stepping into that. You accepted the invitation for something challenging that not many people want to do or can do. So thank you for that. I just want to say thank you as well.
I mean, I just feel like I feel you're welcome. Thank you. But also I feel like it's so what I've done, if I've done anything, or just the acceptance of the awakening, I suppose, is so small on the scale. And I've always, like, because I live on both ends of the spectrum and not in the middle, you know, I feel like I should be marching and I should be doing this and doing that. But I also am at a stage in my life, I think too, where I need to know where I'm the most effective.
Right.
I'm not sure I actually know that yet in this particular conversation, but I need, you know, marching isn't probably where I'm meant to be at this stage. But showing up and just showing up. And also I feel like, and maybe this is tied into my need for family, is I have an opportunity. I've always taught my children, they're adults now, and they're all, and I appreciate their politics and their sensibilities of all of what we're talking about. And they are on their own journeys. But now I have my grandchildren, and I see that, ooh, I almost swore there. I see how much race is still such a huge divide with them in elementary school now. And it's infuriating. And just even hearing some other people that I don't know well, they're just parents of other children, just the ways people speak. And where I live is a very liberal place, but that doesn't mean that everybody that lives there is. I guess that's where I'm starting to, like, you know, rediscover people and rediscover how people live at, you know, parents of young children. And that, I mean, come on. I'm still always astounded at, I don't want to say too much about anybody or anything, but about at here anyway, you know, I'm still always astounded at people's ignorance. I don't know.
I hear you. Just,
and you're teaching children.
Yes.
Get me started about guns. I mean, and so yes.
I hear you.
Well, it's a lifelong conversation and a lifelong movement in every way. For all of us, right?
That's so true. That's so true. Thank you for that. Well, we're going to move into a little bit of a lighter part of the question. kind of a quiz sort of or play. So we just ask some really fun light questions. What was the worst job you ever had and why? And the lesson
you sent me those, and I skipped over that because
is that the one you skipped over? I thought you answered it.
No, I skipped over that because I thankfully am at a place in my career where there's never been, I'm happy. I'm happy where I am, and I don't bring any negativity to it. I remember I
Okay.
thought about that hard because I thought, oh, that could be a fun question to answer. But in the spirit of this
Uh-huh.
conversation we're having and about the business, I'm at a place where I've navigated it to a point where I'm mostly happy.
Got it. Beautiful. So that's right. Understood.
Yeah.
So I don't know why when I got the response, I didn't know that you were moving through which ones. I'm so understood. Understood. Got it.
Okay.
What I love about
Pick
that is
five, so I picked five.
got you. Understood. So what I got from that too is that when you're in a good place in your life, even the moments that help you to become who you are, it
Yeah.
doesn't need any more energy
I
because you know who you are because of it. So
yeah.
I hear you.
I can talk about all the struggle from the beginning, and I can talk about the worst productions
Mhm.
I've been on. But right now, I just in encouraging people to get into the industry, I hope that I can show at this point that even though I have struggles every day at work, it's a good industry to be in, and it's very
Yeah.
fulfilling. And I am just at the end of this show too. So I'm in kind of like the honeymoon phase of this show.
Yes.
Where,
Yes.
oh, it's all been great.
Yeah.
But I just want to promote that at this point. Ask me again in 5 months, and I might have another
I hear you. I hear you. Well, tell us your favorite color.
orange.
Yes. 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 I love how you and I understand you had an experience with a shaman around that.
Oh, well, that's my ghost story. So
Yes.
that's my ghost story. I'll keep that one short. So
Okay.
the Laurel Canyon in Los Angeles, Laurel Canyon in the Hollywood Hills is famous for being haunted and for ghosts or spirits, for spirits. And I was working on a project there for 5 years, and I was staying at a friend's place who was living in New York at the time. And so her house, she was not there often. So it was kind of a win-win, and it was really great. And it was really gracious of her. It's an old house in the canyon, and it was perfect, and I loved it. And it had a vibe. The house had a vibe, definitely, but it wasn't scary, it just had a vibe. And unbeknownst to me, when she had been at the house, she had had some experiences, but she didn't tell me. And then I had started having experiences. I didn't tell her because I didn't want her to feel like I was dissing her house at all in any kind of way. And
Right.
so my most profound experience was there were several things leading up to it, just things moving and just feeling a presence in the house and just seeing reflections but not seeing anything, just sometimes a
Wow.
heaviness, a weird vibe at the top of the stairs that you had to go. It was
Oh my God.
it was an old hunting lodge originally. So at the top of the stairs, and it's dark in the canyon at night. So spooky, but I was never scared. It was just like I was never alone. That's what I felt. Then I was getting ready to go to Utah for a show. And for 3 nights in a row, there was things happening in the house. The warning alarm started going off in the middle of the night, the one that like beep beep before the house alarm goes off. And there's nothing wrong with it. I actually even had a guy come to look at it. There was nothing wrong with it. But to turn it off, I would have to go down. I would have to, because I was staying on the top floor, I would have to go to the top of the creepy stairs where there was that heavy weirdness. And by the way, when I would go up the stairs, I would step over the top. Like that's how I dealt with it. It was there, it wasn't going to go away. I didn't know what to do with it, so I would just step over it. So, but to get to the panel to turn the beeping off, I had to go down the stairs in the middle of the night and step over the top of the stairs to go down to turn off, and then go back up the stairs to get back up. So, but the thing was, that was creepy, but more than anything, it annoyed me. So I just was annoyed by it. And so that happened for like 3 nights in a row. And in those nights, I was shipping. So things started happening, the moving things on the wall and stuff like that. And the night before I was leaving, just before dawn, somewhere around 5 o'clock in the morning, perhaps, the alarm had gone off that night again. So I was already a bit pissed off because I had to get up and I was trying to sleep and I was not sleeping well because I was anxious to get up in the morning, make sure we were shipping everything. So around 5 o'clock in the morning, I woke up and I looked out. There was no door on my bedroom, and in outside of the bedroom is the living area. It's like an open living area, and it's surrounded by glass windows, and it's still like it's a cottage. And so I looked up, and I was angry because it was 5 o'clock and I wanted to sleep till 6. And I looked up and I looked out into the living room, and there were about 5 across and then an infinite number deep of female. They were definitely, they presented as female to me. There were no faces or anything. It was just sort of aura. And it was like long hair and long skirts kind of thing, like all one. They weren't through, but they were kind of opaque. That's what I clocked. And I looked at them and they were all moving like together in unison, like moving.
Wow.
But not coming over the threshold of the bedroom door. And they were moving and they were asking me something. They were like, or they wanted something from me. And
wow.
And so it had been them all along in this like first year that I was living there.
Right.
And they were there, but I was angry because I was busy, man. I was busy. And I had to get up and I wanted that extra hour of sleep, and the alarm had already gone off. And so I just looked at them and my response was, what the F do you want?
Oh my goodness.
And they were just like, nothing happened. And then I was just like, I'm going back to sleep. And I rolled over to the wall and I went, and I was like, I went back to sleep, and that was it.
Wow.
And I went to work that day, and I said something to my coworker who had grown up in the canyon and experienced stuff. And I said to her, this was the day after that. And I'd said to her, oh my God, the alarm didn't go off last night. And I said, oh, by the way, this is what I saw. And she's like, oh yeah. And I'm like, what do you mean? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, well, okay. And I had to get on a plane to get out of town. So I didn't have time to like get into it. I finally told this to my friends who owned the house. And that's when she said, oh my God, and then the two of us had this conversation about all the things that had been happening to us in the house. And so she was coming out, she wanted a shaman to come and,
clear space,
clear
right?
the house and do things. So he came, and he was amazing. And he came in and he read my aura and hers. And we picked a stone, we did some things, and it was kind of remarkable. We told him what was going on in the house, and he sort of tried to sort of dispel some of the things we were saying, which kind of like, made me angry because I was like, you don't believe us. And then he said, okay. And he sort of looked around the level that we're at, it's a 2-level house. And then he went up the stairs and he got to the top of the stairs and he said, whoa. And all the hair on his arm stood up. And I was like, see? And said, they're here.
That's right.
They're here. And then he asked if we would, sort of stay in the lower level so he could kind of get in touch and do his thing. And he smudged around and did stuff. He was up there for only about 15 minutes, maybe. He came back down and he said, they're gone now. And he said they were a group that were stuck. And because I was probably the one mostly spending most of the time at the house, and I guess I'm pretty open, and they felt comfortable showing themselves. And he said that basically when I told them to F off, that gave them permission to leave, but they were still around. And so whatever he did gave them permission to actually move on. And so then I felt bad because they left because I was mad at them. And then I went through all of that, but they never came back. They were gone.
Wow.
At the top of the stairs never went away. And he had other ideas for that because it was a hunting lodge and perhaps things were buried underneath the house because the next level was built later and all sorts of things. So that's the ghost story.
That's amazing. Well, thank you for sharing. That's incredible.
Yeah.
When you said that they were moving, I immediately thought of dance, the unison of dance.
That's so interesting. No one has ever said that to me. Wow.
and that connection
Yeah.
that perhaps was coming through, because apparitions can happen in relationship to so many different things. They could be trying to tell us some stuff. They could be trying to, you're not sure what the project was that you were working on, but bring some sight to that.
Yeah.
Could be trying to help us to heal through the different things,
Yes.
but the unison of that immediately, especially they were in one, in which like costuming, you're in one when you're in unison choreography
Yeah.
with things. Seems very much like dance. Seems like a dance. So
That's so interesting. I never ever put that together, and no one has ever. Thank you for that. Wow. Because yes, that makes so much sense. They were just like, and flowing of like a flowing robe or something. That's what my mind saw, and just all together and kind of relating, like moving forward, but not going anywhere.
Right. Indeed. Indeed. Trying to show you some things. I think.
Yeah.
Indeed. Wow. Powerful. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm not sure what your time is. I have 2 questions, but if
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm
okay.
good. Yeah.
So then the other one is, so your celebrity you're obsessed with.
Yeah. I mean, most of them are older, so I don't even know if people will even know who they are, but my number one always has been and has stayed with me my entire life. It's Josephine Baker. And because I don't know why, because I'm not sure how I connected with her story or when I picked up her story, her life story, but she fascinated me. And she was a dancer and a performer at the end, and an icon, and an activist, and loved children, and moved from like a really down and out situation in America to Paris, France, and became a celebrity there in the 20s. And an African-American woman, and is like I'm not sure what the honor is, but anyway, she's like an important person. She was like basically the key to the city sort of thing, but bigger than that. Very involved in the war for the movement. What a remarkable woman and a remarkable life. And somehow her story spoke to me, because I think as a dancer, I was never really that great. And not that Josephine Baker wasn't great, but I would never be a ballet dancer, for instance. Like my physically, it just was never, I just didn't suit it, but I wanted to be so bad. And I feel like that also was a part of her journey through her creativity. She started off as a performer in vaudeville, and then a dancer, and then the banana dress, the whole thing, the Folies Bergère, the whole thing, and then into a performer in every other sense of the world. And of course, her life story's been done in film and TV. And then I created my first costume line. I dedicated to her, and it was called Josie B. And I don't know if anyone ever connected with that, but it didn't matter to me. It's one of those things where it means so much to me, and I don't need everyone to understand it. I just need I need to know that's there for me. So she has been, her story, always been a part of inspiration throughout my whole life. All parts of it, like her Rainbow Tribe. Come on. I wanted that.
Yes.
I fought 3, but they were my own biologically. But I mean, gosh, wow.
I love Josephine. Thank you. Thank you.
Story. What a life. I mean, talk about living. And she died fairly young. I mean, she was 60 something. Yeah. I don't remember now, but
sorry about that. I gotta put in my my charger. Yes. Wow.
Yeah, so she's kind of top of my list. And then I love Frida Kahlo. Who doesn't love Frida Kahlo? Come on. And her story also died too young, and just her art and her culture and her, I think because of her also, I have a real affection for Mexico as a country and culture, and Frida the movie. Oh, so jealous of that.
A big one is coming. Another big one is coming.
Yes. Yeah.
What's your vision for your life now?
I am really enjoying, I don't know.
Mhm.
I know the path I'm on, and
Mhm.
that will continue. I
Mhm.
don't see myself moving off of it. What I
Mhm.
have, what has been changing over the last, I want to say, or not changing, what has been occurring more over the last 4 years is connecting with and mentoring uh, um, people who want to get into the industry, which sort of has turned into a little bit of a conversation like we're having,
Mhm.
where it's not just about how to become a costume designer and how to get there and what you do, but it's also expanded into life experience at the same time. And not that I'm an expert and all I can share is what I've experienced and what I know. And a lot of that has come back to me being a woman and my experience from a woman's point of view. And that's who I've been speaking to. I can't really say I've been having very many experience with men or in this way. So the coaching and the sort of not see, and I don't even see myself as a coach. So I don't know if I can own that. I just see it more like sharing. I'm just sharing. And
Mhm.
that's become a lot. I've been doing that a lot more lately, and I really dig it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really
Well,
do.
yeah. Yeah. You're giving us so much life.
It
And the
just,
light that comes from your experiences are just opening up so much just with here. And it's going to be incredible when I finally put this together and share it. I'm so excited because I mean, it's just, oh my God. Yeah. What a
yeah,
beautiful gift. Yeah. That's
yeah.
amazing.
And I'm really happy that I'm present in the moment for this, because of course I could
Mhm.
not be, or I could be even more I mean, because what I do is a very self-involved,
Mhm.
it just is sort of work. And maybe it's just age. Maybe I'm just following the path that everybody does with age, don't know when you're young, and you're wiser when you're older, or you have more time to share. Perhaps that's where I'm at. And I'm just happy that I'm there. I'm happy
Yeah.
that I'm there, and the opportunities have presented themselves to me to share,
Right.
whether it's just an interview about what I do, or whether I'm mentoring someone, or whether I'm talking to a class or a presentation or whatever. I really enjoy that. I'm really enjoying
Mhm.
sharing. Yeah.
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 Well, Cynthia, you're sharing today and the difference you're making. Your creative genius and just being who you are is so inspiring and so
Oh,
empowering,
that's nice.
amazing. I'm so
Aw.
blessed with the moment and thank you for this opportunity. And yes, this was just such an enriching experience. I'm just blown away by it and by this.
By my ghost story?
It's amazing. What'd you say?
By my ghost story?
But all of what you are, all of who you are, all of who you
Aw.
are.
Aw.
So thank you so much for being you. And yeah, and yes. Thank you for that. Your resilience, your tenacity, and your story is just incredible. So thank you for sharing that. Is there anything that you want to say and wrapping or ending? You want to?
I'm better at the ramble than I am at the bookends, but yeah, what can I say? I mean, just, oh gosh, it's so simple, but live your life and live in the moment and try and recognize the moments when they happen, even if it's just for a minute, because I think we're always too busy and always too so like focused on movement and forward and better and more or different, that even if you just recognize the moment, even just for a moment, and let it get in, that's how you build, because you forget. If you don't absorb it and feel it, you forget, and it might come back to you, but it might not, and there's a huge loss in that. And just be kind to yourself, because that's a hard thing to do. Be kind to yourself, and just be kind to yourself in your evolution, because it's hard to know where to be sometimes, or what you're doing there, and what you're meant to be doing there, and what you can give from where you're at there. So I don't know, patience and kindness, and be nice to the animals and the planet, please.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Cynthia.
You're
Beautiful.
welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank
You're
you. Thank
welcome. I'm so glad we connected. I
Yes,
such
me
a
too.
gift, and especially at this
Yes.
point in my life, I'm really
Yeah.
so blessed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, me as well. Thank you. I'm so grateful too. So we'll definitely be connecting again soon.
Hey.
Enjoy your time in going home and reconnecting there and all the beautiful things.
Yay.
Have an amazing week. Be safe, of course, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, and you too.
Thank you. Thank you, Cynthia.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.